And we begin with some sad breaking news. Singer and music icon Tony Bennett has died. That's according to a statement from his publicist provided to NBC News. Bennett often said his lifelong ambition was to create a hit catalog rather than hit records. He released more than 70 albums, bringing him 19 competitive Grammys, all but 2 after he reached his 60s and enjoyed deep and lasting affection from fans and fellow artists. Tony Bennett sang with Lady Gaga, Billy Joel, Frank Sinatra, among many others throughout his career. Back in 2016, Bennett was diagnosed with Alzheimer's disease. At this moment, there is no specific cause for his death. Tony Bennett was 96 years old, just 2 weeks short of his birthday.
Let's bring in best-selling author Kurt Anderson. Kurt, you've interviewed Tony Bennett, talked to him. What an extraordinary, iconic figure, and an iconic figure whose reach moved across generation after generation after generation.
Yeah, he was a big star from the old days when I was a toddler, right? I remember listening to his music with my mom in the kitchen when she was making me sandwiches at age 3, 4, 5, right? And so here he is, still 60 some years later, still making records, still making and having this whole new career, really, that began when he was 70, right? When he started, he did records with Cyndi Lauper. He then, as we saw in your introduction, sang with Lady Gaga and Billy Joel and others. And you know, unlike some of the not flashes in the pan, but people who came and went in the 50s and 60s of his generation, he stuck around, I think, because he was a lovely singer and chose well and all of that. But in my experience, spending an hour with him once, talking to him, he was a lovely human being, which is hard to fake, right? And I'm certain that people loved working with him when they rediscovered him in his last 3 decades of life, because he was just such a mensch, and he had this whole philanthropic side too of creating arts education in New York City, and I'm sure elsewhere too, and funding it and being behind it. He was, you know, he was a guy who lived a great long life, and if people can be said to deserve to live great long lives, he was one of them.
Well, aside from the unbelievable story of his life and his unbelievable catalog of songs and his unbelievable voice, this is also, in the end, Joe, a story about the human brain and love. And in his final years, there was this incredible set of moments where Tony Bennett couldn't remember a lot, but he could remember his songs.
Yeah.
And he could remember the music. And it says so much about the human spirit.
It says a lot about the human spirit. It also says so much about the extraordinary power of music. My mother, who was had a master's in music and played music her entire life, suffered from dementia, and even when she forgot people's names, she would sit down at the piano and could play Misty, a song that I grew up hearing being played in the living room. And Kurt, when you talk about Tony Bennett to somebody that's maybe a little younger, they'll all talk about what he did with Lady Gaga at a time when he couldn't remember a lot of names, but he could remember his classics. He could remember the hits, and
he remembered her name on stage.
And he and he remembered her name on stage. Again, an extraordinary story about an extraordinary man, but also, my God, the power of music. It's shown through all 96 years of Tony Bennett's life, didn't it?
It really does. You know, I mean, and he also never had these, as far as I know, these dark areas of his biography. You know, that the Sinatras of the world and all these people, again, of his generation have inevitably, because they're human. He sang beautifully and lived beautifully, it seems to me.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
Well, Tony Bennett, again, iconic singer, songwriter, dead at the age of 96 after an incredible career, an incredible life. And again, just hearing his voice brings tears to my eyes, because he broke through so many barriers in terms of not just his music, but in terms of being a man in his 80s and 90s as a performer, having some of his greatest moments on stage being so much later in life. He just transcended generations in terms of being able to break through with his music. And you talk about music activating the brain, Joe, and I was there with you, with your mom, when she would be able to come really back through music. And I think, again, it is music that triggers the brain, but it's what is music? It's love. Yeah. And that's what Tony Bennett embodied, joy and love. Every video that you see of him performing, you see love coming through his words and his songs and through his music.
No doubt about it. All right. Well, obviously, we'll be following this throughout the day on MSNBC. Let's now turn to the latest news.
All right.